Hello breakdancers, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be taking a look at 20 tips and tricks in breakdance. Some of them you may have already known and some of them you may not have known. So let's jump right into it. Number one, if you want to add a dynamic copyright year in your footer, what I mean is if you want to add a year that changes automatically, you can use the text element. I'm going to add a section and then I'm just going to drop in a basic text element. So what you do is you just delete that text, go to the dynamic data, and then you go all the way down to utility, and then you're going to add current date, and then you're going to expand that and go to format. In the format, you're going to choose custom, and then the format, you're going to put the capital Y, which represent the year. And to add your copyright sign, you're going to go to pretend. The copyright sign is represented by and copy semicolon. That's the copyright sign, and then you add your company name. And that company name, you know, you could add a space before that, okay? And that you're going to have your automatic year. So that means you don't have to manually change this every year. Number two, there are two ways to add a class in Breakdance. So I'm going to go ahead and add a div here. And if I want to add a class to this div, I can go into advanced. I can just go in here and call it my div and just, you know, hit there. That's one way I could add that class. The second way you can add a class is you can come in here and then go to selectors, and then you're gonna add another div. Okay, let's just say another div, another class. All right, another div class, and then you click add. Now when you do that, that is not added to a specific element. So if you want to apply that class to a specific element, you're gonna go here and then you just go and type another, and you see that existing class is already there. Then there are two ways you can also style the class. You can click here and then you can have your class here. You can style it from here. Okay. The class setting is listed here. So you can style it from here. The width, I can say maybe a minimum width of 500 pixel. So you can see it's styled there. Now, if you don't want to style it from there, another way you can style it is by going directly to these selectors, and then I can just click here and then style it. Now, take note that it doesn't matter what I'm selecting in this case. So if you're styling it using this method, it doesn't matter whether I'm selecting the element or not. This is particularly useful if you have the element in another page and then maybe while previewing something on the front end, you realize that there is something you need to change. You really don't need to move to that page to make that change or to select that element. You can just come in, select that particular class and say, all right, I wanted to make the maximum width or the minimum width 500. And it's going to do that. That is without selecting that element. And that change is going to be applied to that element, irrespective of if that element is on that page or not. But one more thing you have to take note of is if whenever you finish editing a class, you have to click save. Tip number three, do you know that you can use a button to open a pop-up? Normally, when you're creating a pop-up in Breakdance, you can set the pop-up trigger by going into the pop-up add trigger, and then you can select any of these, and then or else you can select a click target and you can select a selector and put the element ID. But you don't always have to do that. If you have a button, let's say I drop a button in here and I want to set that button to open a specific pop-up, I can just select that button, go in here and go to under here, type, go to action, and then under action, go to pop-up, and then select the pop-up you want to open and the action you want to, take. You want to open, close, or toggle. So you can choose any of these and it's going to open that pop-up. So if I save this and then go to the front end, if I click here, it's going to open that pop-up. All right. Tip number four, you can search for settings in Breakdance. Let's say you want to apply opacity to these elements, and instead of going in to look for where opacity is, you can simply come here and just type opacity, and it's going to show you where the opacity is, but then it's showing you the property for which that opacity is assigned to. Now, there are two places in which this search is conducted. The first place it is conducted is in the regular style panel. And then the second place is in the advanced panel, but that is not searched by default. So if I search for opacity, it's going to show me the opacity settings for the style panel. If I want to include the advanced panel, I will come to this icon and click to include that. So you can now see the opacity settings of the wrapper. So if I come here and type 0, you can see that I have that. You can see the opacity settings for the hover. If I come here and type 0.5 when I hover, okay. So you can easily access the settings just by searching for it. Tip number 5, you can search for settings that you have modified. Let's say you have an element that you have a lot of modification made. Let's say I have this background set, to that, and then I have transition duration set, and then I've changed maybe something about the width. Let's say let's say 400 pixel. But then you're working and then you want to quickly access a specific property. You don't want to go looking for it. Let's say everything was maybe hidden away somewhere here in the advanced settings, maybe in the layout, you know, I've just made this flex and all that. Now, when you come to work on that element, you can quickly just click modify to show only the properties that have changes made to them. And this is extremely useful in quickly accessing and changing the properties that you have already set in Breakdance. Number 6, it is very easy to add a slideshow or a video background to a section element in Breakdance. The section element in Breakdance is a really unique element. If you want to quickly add a video background to the section element, all you need to do is go to the background. You have different options: image, gradient, video. You could click here and then choose the video URL, or you could click slideshow and then come in here and choose all the different images that you want to use. Okay, I can quickly select those 3 and then insert it, and it becomes a slideshow. I can, you know, change my transition duration. I can go to the slideshow settings, change different things that I want. There are a lot of settings here that you can make overlay. You can, you know, make an overlay. Okay, and that is going to give you the overlay property of that background, especially if you want to use it for a background you have some text on. You want to put the overlay there. So it's very easy to quickly add an overlay or a slideshow or an image background or a video background to a section in Breakdance. Tip number 7, you can increase the width of a button in the global settings. So this has been something that a couple of people have asked. How do you change the button width? So by default, your button is like that, okay? And you want to make your buttons a little bit wider, all the buttons. So all you need to do is go to the global settings. Of course, it's advisable to always use the global settings, and then you want to do that to your primary button, let's say, for instance, or both, but you have to go in and then under the button size, you go in there and select custom, and then it gives you the option to change the paddings. Okay, now you may wonder why not the width, because the paddings determine the width of the button. So I can come here and put 50 here and put 50 here, and that automatically increase the width of my button. Now the reason padding is good is because it gives you consistency. The distance between your text and the edge of the button needs to be consistent. So if I change this to info, you can see it is consistent. If I change this to contact us now, you know, you have that consistency in the distance between the edge of the button and the text. Number 8, if you want to add a custom font in Breakdance, you can go to under settings, you can go to preferences, and then you're going to see custom font, and you can upload the font by clicking add font, and then you can type the font name. Let's say I want to add Poppins, and then I can click add, and then I can click and upload any font that I want to upload from here, and your font is going to be loaded in Breakdance. Number 9, you can also add custom breakpoints in the preference. So if I go to preference, you can see breakpoints, and I can also add a breakpoint. Let's say I want to add a breakpoint for a size that is very small screen size, maybe small phones that are, let's say, below 400 pixel in width. So I can click here and add, and then I can come here and set my maximum width, which is going to be, let's say, 360 pixel, and then my minimum width, which is going to be, let's say, 320 pixel. And then the device preview width. Now it shows the width at which you want to preview. Then I can come to custom and say I want to preview this at, let's say, maybe the same 320 pixel, and then I can click save, and there I have my breakpoint. And if I save my breakpoint, I can always close, and then when I go back, I will find that small breakpoint right there. But I'm going to suggest that you be careful on how you add breakpoints to your page unless you know exactly what you're doing, because you may have undesirable results if you add breakpoints anyhow. Tip number 10, you can change the way the panels in Breakdance stack on each other. For example, you come here and let's go to the advanced setting. Especially in the advanced settings, you come here, click here, and then you click layout, and then you click this. You know, you have to click this. Now normally by default this is not how it's tagged because I've changed mine. So if I go to the preference under UI settings, if you go to pop out position, let's say I reset this to side by side, which was the default, and then I'm gonna go out from there. Now if I come here and then when I click the next one, you see it's stuck on the side, it moves to the side, and then I come here, it moves to the side. Okay, now personally I did not like the way it spans across here. So if yours spans across like this, all you need to do is to go into the preference and under the UI settings, go here and say, you could say stacked first visible. Now this is what first visible does. If you come here and you click here, the first is going to be visible. And then when you click here, let's come here again. You see the other one stack. So the first one is always visible, so you know where you were. But personally, I prefer everything to stack on top of each other. So when I come to that preferences, this is what I choose, stacked. And then what it does is that it just stacks everything right on top of each other. It makes it easy. And then when I want to go out, I just click out and everything closes. Tip number 11, you can add a style sheet in Breakdance. Now, if you never knew that you can add style sheet in Breakdance, you can do that by going to global and global settings. Now, let me move my picture away from here. Okay, so you can go to code, and under code, you could always add a style sheet and do whatever you want to do with that style sheet. So let's say I want to declare some, styles here. I can always do that. But it would be nice if we're able to give this style sheet a name. I'm not quite sure that we can do that just yet. Don't forget to save after you're done. Tip number 12, to add hover effect in Breakdance, you always have to look out for a finger icon next to the property that you're working on. So let's say you come here and then there's this color here, and if there is no finger icon, then you cannot add a hover effect to that element. So let's say I come to, let me just add a div here, and in that div I want to add a background. Okay, that background is white. Okay, and then I want to give it a hover effect. When I hover, I want the background to change to red. I can come here and you see there is a hover effect. Once you click that, you are currently editing hover effect for that specific element. Now the beautiful thing is that it doesn't activate hover for everything. So I can come here and change this. So if I hover on it, you can see that it hovers, it changes. Now if you want it to transition, of course you have transition duration here, which does not have anything to do with this. Okay, so all you need to do is just type transition and then click on the advanced, and then you're going to see a transition effect here. So you come here and then just change the duration, and you're going to see that it's going to transition. Okay, you apply it to the wrapper element. Tip number 13, you can easily add animation to any element in Breakdance in the advanced panel. So if you click on element, let's say I click this text element, if I want to add an animation to it, I can come here and there's a lot of animation settings. You have scrolling animation, entrance animation, and sticky effect. So let's say I want to add an entrance animation to this text. I can come here and then just add an entrance animation, say slide up, and my duration, I will leave the default duration for now. There's a lot of settings here and you can just do that. And if you go to the front end and check it out, you're going to see that it slides up. You see, let me refresh that again. You see, it slides up. So I'm not going to waste time looking at different kinds of animation. I just want to let you know that these are the animations that you can add. If you want to add a scrolling animation, that means, let's say we have a couple of these sections and then you want to add to this specific maybe button. And so I can come here and then go to animations and add a scrolling animation. That means I'm going to enable it. And then I want to scroll the horizontal position. The start, I want it to start maybe somewhere there, and then the end, I want it to end there. Okay, now it doesn't seem as if it is working, so I'm just going to move that section right to the middle here and save it again. Okay, so you can see that it's it moves. This is it. You see, it moves and it's locked to the scroll bar. So that is the scrolling animation. You could go ahead and explore that animation further by tweaking the settings. There's a lot of settings here that so many things you can do with it, rotate, scale, so many things. So just check it out. This is just to let you know that you can add any kind of animation you want in Breakdance. Tip number 14 is that Breakdance has a design library and you can add elements, sections, and a full page into your website from Breakdance design library. It is also designed in such a way that you can reuse sections from your page from the design library. So I'm going to remove all this and then I'm going to go to add, and then under add you will see library here, and you click on library. It's going to open all the design set from Breakdance library. So if you come all the way here, you see all these are different design sets. So this is maybe something you want to add. So if you click add to page, you see it's going to add the whole of that to your page. I'm going to delete that. Let me take that away for now, and then I'm going to go to add again. And then I'm going to select maybe something different. You see, there are so many things here. You can add each of these sections. Now, if you want to import the whole page, for instance, if you come here to full website, okay, let's say, you can see that this is UI kit. This is fancy section. This is fancy section, but this is a complete site. Let's say fitness zone. You can come here and then you'll see the whole fitness zone. Okay. And then the whole page is loaded. You can add the whole page, or you could add individual sections to your page. So if I click import page, and for this page to look exactly the way it looks, it's going to ask you to import the global styles, but I didn't want to import the global styles. That's why I just have all this. And then if you have a section in your own page, let me delete the whole of this. You can go in here and then go to this website, and then you will see the different sections. So I have a particular section from another page that I want to add. I can just click and then bring in that section into my new page. Tip number 15, if you're working in the builder and then maybe there are certain things that get in the way and you would like them to be, not visible while you're working. Let's say you didn't want this div to be visible while you are working. You could go to the advanced, and you don't want it to be visible in the builder. It's going to be visible on your website, but you just don't want it to be visible in the builder. You can come here and then you could go to conditions and then in builder preview, and you could say always hide. That means these elements will not be shown in the builder. Okay, like that element will not be shown in the builder, but it's going to be, if I save this and go to the front end, it's still there. So that means it's particularly useful if you have maybe an element that gets in the way, like a big background or like a decorative element that you don't want it to get in the way while you're working. So you want to hide it while you're working in the builder. This is very useful feature. It would be nice if there is an indicator to show which element is hidden in the builder right here on the structure panel. Tip number 16 is similar, but in this case, it shows you that you can hide elements on breakpoint. So let's say you have an element and then I want to hide it on desktop. I can click just to hide it on the desktop, okay? And it's only hidden on the desktop. Now, the in-builder preview means, do you want that element that you've hidden to be grayed out, or you want it to be completely hidden? I usually love choosing the option of grayed out, which is the default option. It shows that that element is there on your page, okay, because it's visible on other breakpoint. You can see so it just lets you know that there is something on your page that is hidden at this breakpoint. It just in case you made a mistake or you forgot. So this is very useful. Tip number 17, there is an easy way to quickly access the parent element of an element in Breakdance. Now let me turn this off. Let's say I have this text here, and then maybe this text was wrapped in, let's say, let me add a div, okay? There are situations where you have an element, that you can't tell the difference right here. If I have this text selected, there's no way to select the div right here on the page, okay? For a lot of other builders, it's something like that. You have to come here to the structure panel to select the parent. Now, but in Breakdance, if you're working with Breakdance and you want to select that div, which is the direct parent, you can just click this arrow and it just quickly switch to select the parent. So for every element, whenever you see this arrow, it means select parent. So you can see I can keep selecting the parent all the way up until I reach where there is no more parent, like the section doesn't have a parent of its own. So that's a very nifty feature. Tip number 18 is that you can copy styles and you can copy settings in Breakdance. For instance, if I have this background to be, let's say, purple, I can quickly copy this and paste here. Now I can paste design. Okay, so remember, when you copy, what you right click, paste design. But there are two things you can paste. Now you can paste design, but then if I go into the advanced and go into the advanced section, go to the wrapper, and let's say I change, and I go to the effect, and then I go to the box shadow, and then I add a drop shadow, okay? So I have a big drop shadow there. Now notice that if I click copy and then I paste design, it's not going to copy the shadow. So to paste any design that you made in the advanced panels, you have to come here and say paste settings, and it's going to paste. So those are the two ways you can copy styles. So paste design copies the styles that you did here, and paste settings copies the one that you do on this other panel. Tip number 19, do you know that you can quickly switch between pages in Breakdance? So let's say you're working on one page and you want to jump to another page. You don't need to go to the back end of WordPress. You can quickly come here, and then you could just come here and just click and switch to the next page. Anyway, let's go back to where we came from, which was our sample page. Tip number 20, you can create a block from within a page. Typically, if you want to create, let's say, like a product list that requires a global block, or you want to do anything maybe with a repeater, anything that requires you to create a global block. Normally what you do is to go to the backend and then you go to global blocks and then create a block, okay? But you really don't have to do that. Let's say you want to add, let's say, a post list that requires a global block, okay? And then we go here to add, and then I'm going to set, let's say, the loop builder. That's what you use. So for the loop builder, we have this product loop builder, but you don't have a block and you want to choose a block, okay? So there are different blocks here, but let's say you want to create a new block. Instead of going to the back, there's a quick way to easily do a block. So what I will do is that I will add a column. Now, if my post loop, I want it to be 3 columns, I'm just going to choose 3 columns, and then I'm going to use 1 column to design there. So I'm going to use my div, which I will set to be 100%, okay? So that div is 100%. Right inside that div, I'm going to do my design. So I'm just going to go here and add maybe my heading. I'm going to add my text. I'm going to add my button. So I'm done with that. Do I have a text there? I didn't have a text. Let's add a text. All right, so I'm done with my block, and then everything is kind of set, okay? Now, what I can do is, all I need to do, this is my block. Let's say I'm finished designing my block. All I need to do is to right click and save as a block and just say 10 tips block, okay? All right, this is 20 tips, right? And then I'm going to save that. Now, once you do that, you can go ahead and just delete this, okay? Select the post loop, come here, and you're going to see the 20 tips block. And it's just going to show all the way there. So that is a very powerful thing to do. So we are done with 20 tips, and then I'm going to give you one bonus, okay? And that is going to be that if you have a dynamic data that has changed, let's say you have any of these titles that have changed in the backend, or there's an image that has changed in the backend, but you are currently still working, you can always come here. For every post loop or every dynamic content, there is this icon here. It refreshes the element, okay? And that is going to update whatever has changed in the backend automatically. So you don't need to refresh the whole page to see the change. Just click here. So that's all for 20 tips and tricks in Breakdance. I hope you found this useful. And if you did, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe. Share this video to others so they will learn 20 tips and tricks in Breakdance also. Until next time, have a great day. Bye.